What if I told you that success isn't reserved for the lucky, the privileged, or the naturally talented? What if there was a set of laws, proven, practical, and powerful, that could guarantee progress in your life, your business, and your goals? No matter where you're starting from. In today's session, we're diving deep into these 7 laws of unstoppable achievement. These aren't just motivational fluff. They're timeless principles used by the world's top performers. If you're ready to shift gears, take charge, and build unstoppable momentum, this is for you. Step 1, the law of clarity. The law of clarity is the foundational principle of all high achievement. It begins with knowing precisely what you want in every area of your life: your career, your finances, your relationships, your health, your personal growth. Clarity is power. When you're clear about your destination, the path begins to unfold. Without clarity, you're like a ship at sea without a rudder, moving, drifting, reacting to the tides and the winds, but never really arriving anywhere meaningful. Clarity starts by asking yourself serious, honest questions. What do I really want? What does success look like to me? What kind of life do I want to live? These questions aren't just philosophical, they are deeply practical. People who achieve extraordinary results do so because they have taken the time to define what those results look like for them. They don't leave it to chance. They write their goals down in detail. They visualize their ideal outcomes and describe them in the present tense. They don't say, I hope to be successful one day. They say, this is exactly what I want, and this is when I will achieve it. Clarity also demands specificity. It's not enough to say, I want to be rich. What does that mean? $100,000, 0 cents. $1 million? Enough to retire by 40. You must define it. The brain thrives on targets. The more specific your goal, the more your subconscious mind begins to work on finding ways to achieve it. Vague goals produce vague results. Clear goals activate the power of intention. But clarity doesn't stop at setting goals. It also involves understanding your values. What truly matters to you? When your goals align with your inner values, motivation becomes natural. You don't have to push yourself as hard because the destination resonates with who you are. You wake up with purpose, not pressure. In addition, clarity involves knowing your strengths and your limitations. High achievers are self-aware. They know where they excel and where they need support. They don't try to do everything. They focus on what they do best and build systems or teams to handle the rest. That's strategic clarity. Clarity gives you direction, and with direction comes confidence. When you're unsure, hesitation creeps in. You second-guess yourself. You waste time. But when your vision is sharp and your goals are well-defined, decision-making becomes easier. You can evaluate every opportunity and every distraction by asking, does this move me closer to my goal or farther away? Clarity becomes a filter through which you prioritize your time, energy, and resources. It also sharpens your focus. In a world full of noise, having clarity is like having a compass in a dense forest. It keeps you on course. Even when challenges arise, and they will, clarity reminds you of why you started and what you're working toward. It keeps your vision intact even when your circumstances are uncertain. True clarity doesn't come from wishful thinking. It comes from deep reflection, from writing things down, from revisiting and refining your goals often. It's not a one-time activity. It's a process. And every time you get clear, you become more powerful, more intentional, and more productive. Step 2, the law of purpose. The law of purpose is one of the most transformative principles in the realm of personal achievement because it shifts the focus from superficial goals to something far deeper. Your reason for being, your internal compass, the why behind everything you do. While goals give you direction, purpose gives you meaning. It's what breathes life into your ambitions and gives you staying power, especially when things get tough. Purpose isn't something you create out of thin air. It's something you uncover. It's already within you, rooted in your values, your passions, your unique perspective, and the contribution you feel compelled to make in the world. People who achieve extraordinary things don't simply work harder than others. They're driven by something they believe in. There's a fire inside them that doesn't burn out after temporary wins or external rewards because it's not fueled by surface level motivation. It's fueled by alignment. When your actions and your goals align with a sense of purpose, everything changes. Work stops feeling like a grind and begins to feel like a mission. Obstacles become challenges to rise to, not reasons to quit. Time becomes more valuable, not because you're busy, but because you understand that each day is part of a bigger picture, a contribution, a legacy, a calling. That clarity of purpose gives you an inner strength that's hard to shake, even when you're facing uncertainty, setbacks, or long stretches of effort without immediate results. People often confuse purpose with passion, but they're not the same. Passion is what excites you. Purpose is what grounds you. Passion might get you started, but purpose is what keeps you going. Passion says, this is fun. Purpose says, this matters. And when you combine both, you become unstoppable. To discover your purpose, you have to look inward and ask questions that go beyond surface level desires. What do I care about deeply? What problems am I drawn to solve? What impact do I want to have on the people around me? What legacy would I want to leave behind? These questions force you to dig into your values and your long-term vision. Purpose isn't about doing what's easy or what brings instant gratification. It's about doing what feels meaningful, even when it's difficult, even when it takes time, even when there's no applause. You'll also notice that purpose is rarely about yourself alone. It usually involves serving others, making a difference, creating something that outlives you. That's why people who are purpose-driven tend to have more resilience and more clarity in their decisions. They're not just chasing success for the sake of a title, a paycheck, or recognition. They're working towards something they believe is bigger than them. That belief adds weight to every action they take, every plan they make, and every risk they choose to embrace. Purpose also sharpens your ability to say no. When you know what you're here to do, or at least the direction you're meant to move toward, it becomes easier to eliminate distractions, decline opportunities that don't fit, and stop comparing yourself to others. Purpose gives you boundaries. It gives you focus. It gives you peace in the midst of pressure. Because you know you're living by design, not by default. It's important to understand that purpose evolves. It doesn't have to be one grand, permanent mission carved in stone. It might start as a quiet desire to help others, to create beauty, to teach, to lead, to build. As you grow, as you take action, your sense of purpose becomes more refined. Clarity increases through movement, not through overthinking. You discover more about your purpose by engaging with life, by paying attention to what energizes you, to what you're willing to struggle for, to what feels like it matters even when no one is watching. When you operate from purpose, even ordinary days take on extraordinary significance. You no longer need external validation to feel fulfilled. You're led by an internal compass, one that stays true even when the world is loud and distracting. Step 3, the law of focus. The law of focus is one of the most critical and underestimated forces behind meaningful progress and lasting achievement. It states that whatever you consistently give your attention to will grow, expand, and ultimately shape the direction of your life. In a world where distractions are everywhere, social media, emails, notifications, competing priorities, the ability to focus is becoming a superpower, not just the ability to concentrate for a few minutes, but the discipline to align your thoughts, actions, and energy toward a single purpose or outcome over an extended period of time. Focus begins with knowing what matters most. Most people don't fail because they lack talent or resources. They fail because they spread themselves too thin. They chase too many goals at once, get pulled in different directions, and end up making little progress in any one area. The law of focus demands that you get crystal clear about your highest priorities and then commit yourself to them with intensity. This means identifying your high-value tasks, the 20% of activities that produce 80% of your results, and then giving those tasks your full, uninterrupted attention. When you focus on fewer things, you achieve more. It's counterintuitive, but deeply true. You can't move 10 projects an inch forward and expect to get anywhere significant. But if you concentrate on one goal, one skill, or one mission, and give it consistent energy, the momentum you build becomes exponential. Focus acts like a magnifying glass under sunlight. It concentrates scattered light into a single burning point. That's the kind of power you activate when you truly lock in on a goal. But focus doesn't just mean knowing what to do. It also means knowing what to ignore. This is where most people struggle. Every day, you're faced with opportunities, requests, distractions, and obligations that can dilute your energy. The law of focus requires ruthless prioritization. You must develop the discipline to say no, not just to time wasters, but even to good opportunities that don't align with your bigger mission. You must learn to protect your time like it's your most valuable asset, because it is. Mental focus is equally important. It's not just about managing your calendar. It's about managing your thoughts. The average person's mind jumps from one idea to another like a browser with 30 tabs open. But achievement comes from mental clarity, training your mind to stay with one thought, one problem, one solution until it's complete. That's why top performers often engage in routines that support deep work, uninterrupted blocks of time where they can think, plan, create, and execute without distraction. They understand that scattered thinking leads to scattered results. Emotional focus also plays a role. If your energy is constantly consumed by stress, anxiety, anger, or comparison, it becomes almost impossible to channel your attention into productive action. That's why managing your emotional state is part of the law of focus. You must learn to redirect your mental and emotional energy toward solutions, toward goals, toward progress, rather than toward negativity or self-doubt. The ability to focus includes mastering your internal world so it supports rather than sabotages your external results. Focus amplifies effort. Two people can work the same number of hours, but the one who works with focus will accomplish more in less time and with less stress. That's because focus compounds over time, Each focused hour builds on the one before it. It leads to flow, the state where you're fully immersed in what you're doing, where time seems to disappear, and your performance rises naturally. People who tap into this kind of deep concentration find that their best work often comes not from working longer, but from working smarter, by cutting out the noise and giving their all to what matters most in the moment. This law also extends to your long-term vision. Focus isn't just about what you do in the next hour. It's about the direction you maintain over months and years. It's easy to get distracted by short-term rewards or shiny new ideas, but the most successful individuals keep their eyes on the bigger picture. They know that staying focused on a clear mission over time yields far greater results than constantly pivoting based on trends or temporary emotion. Their focus is anchored in commitment, not convenience. Finally, the law of focus is about presence, being where you are, fully engaged, fully available to the task or person in front of you. In a culture that celebrates multitasking, true focus stands out. When you're focused, people notice. Your work is sharper, your conversations are deeper, your impact multiplies. Focus is not about being busy, it's about being intentional. It's about choosing your priorities on purpose and refusing to be pulled off track by the urgent but unimportant. Step 4, the law of discipline. The law of discipline is the invisible backbone behind every great success story. It's the ability to do what needs to be done when it needs to be done, whether you feel like it or not. While motivation may get you started, it's discipline that keeps you going. This law is not glamorous or exciting, and that's exactly why it's so powerful. It's the quiet, consistent force that separates high achievers from those who merely wish for success but never quite reach it. Discipline means choosing long-term growth over short-term comfort, trading ease for effort, and repeatedly saying yes to your commitments even when the initial excitement has worn off. Discipline begins with self-control. It's about mastering your impulses and emotions rather than letting them run your day. In a world where instant gratification is one click away, where you can escape discomfort with distractions, where excuses are socially acceptable, discipline is increasingly rare and increasingly valuable. It requires the strength to resist what is convenient in favor of what is essential. It's waking up early when you'd rather sleep in, working on your goals when no one's watching, and following through on your promises to yourself even when no one would blame you for quitting. The disciplined person doesn't rely on mood or motivation. They don't ask themselves, do I feel like it? Because they know feelings are fleeting. Instead, they anchor their actions to their standards, not their moods. They create structure and habits that eliminate decision fatigue and make it easier to stay on course. They build routines that support their goals, and they use discipline to stay consistent even when the conditions aren't perfect. Discipline becomes a way of life, not a one-time act, but a daily practice of showing up over and over again. There's a misconception that discipline is about restriction or deprivation. In reality, it's the gateway to freedom, the freedom to live on your terms, the freedom to accomplish what others only talk about, the freedom to build confidence, because every disciplined act is a reminder that you are in control of your life. When you do hard things consistently, your self-immune changes. You begin to see yourself as reliable, capable, and powerful. You trust yourself more because you're no longer at the mercy of procrastination, laziness, or distractions. Discipline also builds momentum. Every disciplined choice reinforces the next one. When you eat healthy for a day, it's easier to eat healthy the next day. When you exercise in the morning, you feel energized and focused, which improves the rest of your day. When you commit to a deep work session, your mind becomes sharper and more capable of handling complexity. Discipline compounds in the same way that inconsistency does. Each choice either strengthens your will or weakens it. The more you practice discipline, the more natural it becomes. What once felt hard becomes second nature. What once required effort becomes a habit. One of the key components of discipline is delayed gratification, the ability to sacrifice now for something better later is one of the strongest indicators of long-term success. It's the student who studies while others party, the entrepreneur who reinvests profits instead of spending them, the athlete who trains when the cameras are off. These individuals understand that results don't come immediately. They're willing to endure discomfort today for the rewards that only come from perseverance, patience, and long-range vision. Discipline keeps your eyes on the outcome while your hands do the work. Time management is also a discipline. Managing your time wisely means deciding in advance how you'll use your hours and then having the self-discipline to follow through. You don't allow your day to be hijacked by meaningless tasks or other people's emergencies. You honor your calendar, you block distractions, and you protect your time like it's the most valuable asset you own. Because it is. Discipline in time means prioritizing, executing, and staying committed even when interruptions try to pull you off track. Another dimension of discipline is accountability. People who live by the law of discipline don't make excuses when they fall short. They take full responsibility for their actions, their outcomes, and their habits. They don't look for someone to blame. They don't hide from feedback. They welcome correction because they value growth over ego. This kind of accountability requires mental toughness, humility, and a fierce commitment to improvement. They understand that discipline is a choice made in private, but its results show up in public. Discipline is also about emotional mastery. Life will test your patience, your resolve, your endurance. There will be stress, setbacks, and unexpected problems, but disciplined individuals don't allow emotions to dictate their response. They've trained themselves to pause, think, and act intentionally. They keep showing up even when they're tired, frustrated, or discouraged. They know that discipline is forged in adversity, that the days you want to quit are the days your character is being built. They see the struggle not as a barrier, but as part of the path. Lastly, the law of discipline demands that you lead yourself before you lead others. True leadership is rooted in personal integrity, doing what you said you would do, keeping promises to yourself, being an example of consistency and strength. You can't expect others to follow your words if your actions don't align. Discipline gives you that alignment. It brings coherence between your goals, your values, and your behavior. It creates a foundation of trust, not just with others, but within yourself. Step 5, the law of consistency. The law of consistency is the slow, steady heartbeat of all lasting success. While talent, intelligence, and inspiration may give you a strong start, it's consistency that determines whether you ever reach the finish line. It's the quiet discipline of showing up every day, doing the work, sticking to the fundamentals, and making steady progress, no matter how small, toward a meaningful goal. Most people overestimate what they can do in a week and underestimate what they can do in a year. Consistency is what bridges that gap between potential and results. Consistency isn't exciting. It doesn't usually come with applause, recognition, or instant rewards. It often looks like repetition, like doing the same thing over and over again, long before you see any visible change. But this repetition is where mastery is born. It's where skills are sharpened, habits are ingrained, and confidence is built. You don't get strong by going to the gym once in a while. You get strong by going regularly, even on the days you don't feel like it. You don't become excellent at your craft by waiting for inspiration. You become excellent by working through the uninspired days with the same focus and commitment as the motivated ones. Consistency compounds over time. Just like money builds interest, so does effort. Small actions, repeated daily, become powerful forces of momentum. Writing 1 page a day turns into a book. Making 5 calls a day turns into a business. Practicing your craft every evening turns into excellence. The results might not be immediate, but they're inevitable. Because consistent effort makes improvement unavoidable. Every repetition matters. Every small win stacks up. Consistency transforms ordinary actions into extraordinary outcomes by the sheer force of accumulation. Consistency also strengthens your ability to handle setbacks. When you're used to showing up daily, missing one day doesn't derail you. You don't spiral into guilt or self-sabotage. You course correct and return to your rhythm. That resilience comes from repetition, from knowing that one bad day doesn't define the journey. You've created a foundation strong enough to weather the storms because it's not built on hype. It's built on habit. People often look at successful individuals and assume they've made giant leaps, but most success stories are built on small, consistent steps that nobody saw. Behind every breakthrough is a long trail of unseen effort. Early mornings, late nights, practice, planning, failure, and persistence. Consistency is the invisible thread that ties it all together. It turns dreams into plans and plans into progress. It's not glamorous, but it's dependable. It doesn't shout, but it delivers. It doesn't demand talent, but it requires commitment. Step 6, the law of resilience. The law of resilience is the principle that no matter how strong your plans, how clear your goals, or how disciplined your actions, you will face adversity, and your ability to recover, adapt, and keep moving forward will ultimately determine your success. Resilience is not about avoiding pain or difficulty. It's about how you respond when difficulty arrives. It's the internal strength to bounce back from setbacks, learn from failures, and continue your journey with renewed determination, rather than being derailed by temporary defeats. Resilience is built in the trenches. It's formed during the moments when things don't go your way, when the plan falls apart, when progress stalls, and when the enthusiasm fades. It's easy to stay positive and committed when everything is going according to plan. But true resilience shows up when the opposite is true, when you feel like giving up, when doubt creeps in, when circumstances knock you down. In those moments, resilience becomes your lifeline. It's the quiet decision to rise again, not because it's easy, but because your purpose matters more than your pain. One of the most important truths about resilience is that it's not a trait you either have or don't have. It's a skill you build. You develop it through repetition, through struggle, through intentional effort to stand back up when life hits hard. Every time you push through something difficult, you stretch your capacity to handle more. You gain strength, perspective, and mental toughness. Like a muscle, resilience grows through resistance. The more you face, the more you can face. The more pressure you endure, the more unshakable you become. Another often overlooked part of resilience is flexibility. Resilient people don't just persist blindly, they adapt intelligently. When something isn't working, they don't give up, but they also don't keep doing the same thing expecting different results. They reflect, they pivot, and they experiment with new strategies. They understand that being resilient doesn't mean being rigid. It means being anchored in your goal but fluid in your approach. It means holding your vision tightly but holding your methods loosely. That willingness to adjust without abandoning the mission is what allows them to keep progressing even through the most unpredictable storms. Resilience thrives on small wins. When the mountain feels too big to climb, resilient people focus on the next step. They don't obsess over the entire journey. They look at what they can do today, right now. They create progress by focusing on what's in their control, and they use that progress as fuel. Even the smallest action, repeated with consistency and courage, becomes a spark for momentum. That momentum slowly rebuilds belief, and belief is the foundation of resilience. Because when you believe that growth is possible, that failure isn't fatal, and that effort still matters, you'll always find a reason to continue. What makes resilience so powerful is that it turns adversity into advantage. It transforms hardship into insight. The very experiences that were meant to break you become the ones that shape you. Every time you face something that tries to stop you and you choose to rise instead, you become a little more unshakable, a little more grounded, and a lot more prepared for whatever comes next. Step 7, the law of momentum. The law of momentum is the principle that once you begin moving in the direction of your goals with enough intensity and consistency, you activate a force that makes progress easier and more powerful over time. It's the invisible push that builds as a result of focused action, making each subsequent step feel lighter than the one before it. Momentum is not created in a single burst. It's earned through the grind, through the repetitions, through the days when you take action, even when there are no visible results. It builds slowly, sometimes imperceptibly, until one day it feels like everything is flowing, opportunities are opening, and results are accelerating. At its core, momentum is about movement. It doesn't require perfection, it requires action. In fact, momentum thrives on imperfection because the very act of moving forward gives you feedback, insight, and energy. Too often, people wait for clarity, motivation, or ideal conditions before starting, but the truth is, clarity comes from action, not before it. You don't need to see the entire staircase to take the first step. Once you start, your confidence grows, your creativity ignites, your awareness sharpens. You begin to see paths that were invisible when you were standing still. Momentum begins with initiative. The first move is always the hardest, not because it's the most difficult technically, but because it requires you to overcome inertia. Inertia is the weight of doing nothing. It's the resistance you feel at the beginning of anything worthwhile. But once you break through that initial resistance and create motion, you shift the energy in your favor. You start to feel less friction, less internal resistance, and more rhythm. This is why successful people obsess over routines, daily habits, and consistent starts. They understand that when you begin your day with purposeful action, the rest of the day often follows that tone. One of the most powerful aspects of momentum is how it compounds. Each win, no matter how small, leads to the next. Completing a workout makes you want to eat healthier. Making one sales call makes the next one easier. Writing one page opens the door for another. Momentum stacks motivation. It builds belief. The more progress you make, the more progress you want to make. You begin to feel like you're being pulled forward rather than pushing uphill. This shift is subtle but transformative. It's the difference between discipline feeling like a burden and discipline feeling like flow. Momentum also gives you an edge in decision making and execution. When you're in motion, you don't overthink, you act. You trust yourself more. You waste less time doubting and more time doing. You stay connected to your goals, which makes it easier to say no to distractions. This focused energy becomes a shield against procrastination and excuses. The person with momentum isn't waiting to be rescued or inspired. They're building the future, one deliberate action at a time. They move with a sense of urgency because they've tasted progress, and progress is addictive. But momentum doesn't only come from what you do, it also comes from how you think. Mental momentum is just as important as physical motion. It's the habit of reinforcing positive beliefs, visualizing success, and celebrating your wins, no matter how minor. When you condition your mind to expect progress, you become more resilient to setbacks. You recover faster from failure. You stay in the game longer. That psychological edge becomes part of your momentum. It keeps you locked in, focused, and emotionally fueled, even when external results lag behind. Momentum also creates visibility. When you're in motion, people notice, opportunities find you, doors open because you're already moving through others. Success breeds attention, and attention brings possibilities. The effort you put in at the start, which may feel invisible or thankless, becomes the foundation for future leverage. Your name is mentioned in rooms you haven't entered yet. Your consistency attracts collaborators, mentors, and clients, but none of that happens without first creating the spark of momentum through deliberate, often unseen effort. Crucially, momentum is easier to maintain than to start from scratch. Once you have it, your job becomes protecting it. That means guarding your habits, avoiding complacency, and continuing to challenge yourself so you don't plateau. Momentum doesn't thrive in comfort. It grows in challenge and stretch, in movement. The moment you stop pushing forward, you risk slipping into stagnation. That's why high achievers focus not just on winning once, but on sustaining the behaviors that keep them in motion long term. They recognize that a few days of lost focus can turn into weeks of lost progress if they don't course correct quickly. There's also a rhythm to momentum. Every field has its cycles, times of harvest, times of hustle, and times of planting. Momentum is about staying in tune with that rhythm so you know when to press harder and when to recharge. It's not about being busy nonstop, but about being consistently intentional. You learn to ride the waves of progress by continuing to take action regardless of external circumstances. Whether you're in a season of massive gains or slow buildup, momentum is nurtured by forward movement, by never letting the flame go out entirely. Ultimately, momentum transforms effort into ease. What once felt hard begins to feel natural. The work that required pushing becomes something you're pulled into. Energy attracts more energy. Achievement attracts more achievement. And it all begins with one step, taken boldly and repeated consistently until the force of momentum begins to carry you forward with a power far greater than the one you started with. Now, as we bring this journey to a close, remember, achievement isn't about chance, it's about choice. These laws aren't abstract theories, they are timeless principles that, when applied with intention, have the power to transform your life. Purpose gives you direction, focus channels your energy, discipline builds your foundation, consistency fuels your progress. Resilience keeps you in the game. Momentum accelerates your success. And clarity lights the path ahead.